Welcome to this first video for Lockdown Morse. The first part of the video starts off by explaining the components of Morse that make up the characters and the spaces between them. If you're comfortable with how Morse sounds, perhaps if you already know a few letters, or if you know them all and you're just here to increase your speed, please move ahead to where the first letter is introduced. The timestamp for that will be in the video description. Click on it and it will take you to the correct part of the video. But first, a bit more about this course. When letters were first allocated their dots and dashes, the aim was to make messages as short as possible. For this reason, the most common letters were given the shortest sounds. This also meant that the least common letters became longer and possibly harder to learn. Most courses tend to teach you the shortest and easiest letters first, but I've deliberately written this course to start with the least used letters so that you get more exposure to them. We'll learn the vowels first, and then introduce additional letters one at a time. Rather than having hours of random code, I'll try to use as much real language as possible. This means that as well as making the course more interesting, you'll also get used to hearing certain letter patterns which occur often. As you get used to copying Morse, you'll start to pick up some letter combinations as blocks before you translate the letters individually. THE, for example, will initially sound like 3 individual letters, but as you hear the combination more and more often, you'll start to decode it as a block of letters automatically. There's an important task that I want you to try before we start learning. Sometimes in this course you'll be copying in your head, meaning you don't write or type anything, but to begin with you'll be writing or typing most of what you hear. I'd only recommend you focus on typing if your interest is solely around contesting. If you think you'll be making other types of contacts, I'd advise you to at least write some of the course down on paper. In a moment I'm going to say a phrase and then give you a 10-second timer. I want you to write as much of that phrase as you can in capitals in that 10 seconds. I'll then say the same phrase again and give you another 10-second timer, but this time I want you to write in your normal handwriting. The task is to see which method is quicker for you. A lot of people when learning Morse tend to write in capitals to begin with, but when you work out which method is quickest and easiest for you, stick with it. There'll come a time when you're hearing Morse that's too quick for you to write in full, so you'll just need to quickly jot down call signs and other bits of information, so it makes sense to start with the fastest method now. I'll read you the phrase, you'll then hear a beep for the time to start and then another beep for it to stop. Once you've heard the first beep, write the phrase in capitals until the second beep. The phrase is, once upon a time there was a boy called Sammy who wanted a new yellow bike for Christmas. Okay, now I want you to do the same, but this time in your normal handwriting. Here's the phrase again and then you'll hear the first beep. Once upon a time, there was a boy called Sammy who wanted a new yellow bike for Christmas. Whichever was quickest and easiest, stick with it for now. You can always repeat this exercise by timing yourself to write text from a book or magazine, perhaps timing yourself to write a certain paragraph, first in capitals, then in lowercase. If you now want to skip ahead to learning the first letters, now's the time to do it. Look in the video description and you'll see the timestamp there to click on. Otherwise, we'll now learn about the components that make up Morse and the all-important spacings. Most people, whether they're radio hams or not, will recognise Morse code when they hear it, but a common question is how do you tell the difference between letters and words? To most people, maybe even to you, Morse sounds like a continuous stream of dots and dashes, and at first it might seem impossible to tell where one letter ends and another starts, but with practice you'll find it as easy as listening to these words. Morse is made up of 3 things: dots, dashes and spaces. From now on in the course we're going to refer to them as dits and dars rather than dots and dashes, as they more accurately represent what you'll hear. For example, and don't worry about learning this, The letter Q sounds like this. Now listen again and see if it sounds more like dash dash dot dash or da da di da. I'm now going to play the letter Q in 4 groups of 3. I'll put it on the screen so that you can follow it. Don't worry about trying to remember the letter, this is just an example, but listen to the gap between the letters and then the longer gap between each set of 3. We'll hear that again now. Listen again, focusing on the gaps between the letters and the gaps between the words. I'm now going to put some text up on the screen, and all you need to do is try and follow the text when you hear the Morse. Please don't try and remember any of the sounds you're hearing yet, just listen to the rhythm of each character and the gaps in between the letters and words. Here's the first one. Okay, hopefully you got on okay with that one. We'll go for a next one now, and again just follow the text along as you hear the Morse. Here we go. Okay, we'll do just one more. The question mark at the end is a character in Morse. Here we go. We'll now hear the letter E and the letter T. Follow them on the screen to get an idea of the spacing between the letters. Now follow this text again as you hear the Morse. I know you don't know the letters yet, but see if you can follow it. Okay, don't worry if you didn't follow that perfectly, this will all come with time. To spend any more time on the way letters and words are spaced might end up being confusing now, so we'll now move on to learning the vowels. We'll start with the letters E and O, which you may already have some idea of. Even though I'll tell you which letters to expect to begin with, have your pen ready or be ready at the keyboard and write down the letter as you've heard it. You'll soon start to build up an automatic link between hearing the letters and writing or typing them. Here is E, which you'll hear in 2 groups of 5. Now I'm going to play the letter E again in 5 different groups. The groups can be anything from 1 to 5 characters long. All you need to do is write the letter E when you hear it and leave a space when there's a space. Here we go. Okay, don't worry if you didn't get that exactly right, the spacing will come with time. We're now going to hear the letter O. You'll hear it 2 groups of 5. Here we go. You'll now hear 5 groups of the letter O. Each group will be 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 characters long. Just write an O whenever you hear one, and then leave a gap wherever there's a gap. Here we go. Okay, we'll do that one more time. So 5 more groups, anything from 1 to 5 characters long. Here we go. I'm now going to play some 3, 4 and 5 letter groups of E and O. It's important now that I mention one of the most important ground rules in learning Morse. If you stumble on a letter, just leave a space and move on to the next one. At relatively low speeds, you may not notice how much it slows you down if you stumble over a letter and try to work it out, but as the speed increases, you'll notice that by trying to work out one letter, you might miss the next 2 or 3. It will feel unnatural to miss letters at first, but please, from the very beginning of the course, try not to struggle over letters. If you don't get it straight away, just move on to the next. Shortly, I'll give you some tracks including some letters that you haven't learnt yet. The purpose of these tracks is to get you into the habit of leaving a gap right from the offset. Even if you leave the course now and find another way to learn, this is the one rule that I really hope you stick by. For now though, here's the letters E and O in groups of 3, 4 or 5. Here's the first. Okay, check what you've got with what's on the screen, but don't worry too much if you've made some mistakes. Okay, and here's the next one. Again, letters E and O in groups of 3, 4 or 5. Here we go. Okay, and now the next group of these. So again, E and O in groups of 3, 4 or 5. Here we go. Okay, we'll now have some tracks that include E and O, but also letters that you haven't learnt yet. To make it easier for you to begin with, you'll hear 5 groups, each of 5 letters. When you're writing or typing the letters to begin with, just copy down the ones you know and ignore any that you don't. It's most important that you get into the habit now of immediately moving on if you struggle with a character. So here's the first group. Again, 5 groups of 5 characters, some E and O, and some letters that you haven't learnt yet. Here's the first. And here's the next group of 5. Here's the next group of 5. And then one more group of 5. Okay, so this is what you should have written. The most important thing here is not the E's and O's, it's actually the gaps. Okay, we'll now listen to the whole alphabet a few times. Just follow it with your finger if you need to. So here's the alphabet on the screen, and here's the Morse. Okay, we'll do that again now, but a bit quicker. Don't worry about trying to remember any of the letters. This is just to give you an idea of what some of them sound like. So here's the Morse again. Okay, now one more time, a bit faster. Just try and follow it if you can. Here we go. We're now going to learn the letter A. I'll play A in 2 groups of 5. This is A. Okay, now as before, I'm going to play the letter A in 5 groups of different lengths. They can be 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 characters long. So you'll know you've got the letter A coming. Just write an A whenever you hear it and leave a space whenever there's a space. Here we go. Okay, we'll now have one more group like that. So 5 different groups, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 characters long. We'll now have 8 groups of just E and A. From now on it will always be 8 groups, and each group will be 3 to 5 characters long. The only time this will be different is when a new letter is introduced. So here's the first group of just E and A. And here's another with E and A. Okay, and here's another with E and A. There'll now be 8 groups of A, E and O. Again, it will always be 8 groups with 3 to 5 characters in each group. Here's the first one. And now another. And now another. And now a final group. We'll now learn the letter I. Here's 2 lots of 5 groups of I. You'll now hear 5 groups of the letter I, all with different lengths between 1 and 5 characters. Here's the first. Okay, and here's the next. Okay, and now 8 groups of just I and A. And another 8 groups of just I and A. And now 8 groups of all the letters we've learnt so far. So that's A, E, I and O. And now another. And now another. One more lot of 8 groups of all the letters you've learnt so far. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you got on okay. In the next video, we'll learn the letters U and Y, and then we'll even hear our first words. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.